Hey, Michael Cole, how are you?
I'm good, my friend. How are you? Long time, no chat.
Long time, no chat. So I looked it up yesterday, and it was April of 2019, before the entire world changed, that you and I saw each other last. It was at the Redken Symposium in Las Vegas, California. You already indicated that you remember that, but it feels like 1,000 years ago.
Yeah, I was going to say it's been 1,000 years ago since I saw you in 2019. That's how much change has come at us all at point blank.
Yeah. So summarize what you've been doing since then, last 4 years.
Well, for the longest, I got spoiled. We all went into hibernation in 2020, and somewhere 3, 4, 5 months into it, I went, I don't know that I've not been on an airplane for this long inside of 40 years. So, I was good, like you and other people that are global. I call it living on airplanes and hotels. And I started enjoying it.
Sure.
So, just for the record, I haven't been on one since January of 2020, and now it's become kind of a game. How long can I get my own way, have things on my own terms, where I can stay in the coaching game and whatever game I'm in, just being on the internet, online, Zoom, social media space, and I'm loving it. It was a way blessing in disguise.
You have not flown in over 4 years?
Yes. Yep.
Wow.
Exactly. Now, I've been in the world. Other than like being in the real world, real time. But somebody asked me the other day. So, like, where? What's the farthest you've been since then? And I said, Chicago. I live in Minneapolis. Well,
Okay.
how'd you get there? I drove. I've been to Milwaukee, and so. I've been, when you're in it as long as I've been in it, and I've managed my business and things well, I'm discovering I can, if I'm a little bit short on my revenue because I'm not in the world, a lot of what we get paid for is just the pains of being, especially today on airplanes. It's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs to be on the airplanes today.
Yeah.
I used to tell people I do this for free, but you have to pay me a lot of money to get me on an airplane. And now I'm saying, no, you can't. There's not enough money you could pay to get me on airplanes, and you're going to have to pay me anyway.
No, I love that.
And people have been willing to do it, so here we are.
And so you're virtual.
Yes. Oh, 100% with teeny weeny exceptions, but yeah. And I tell you, it's cost me a lot. Yeah, I was probably 25 plus year role with L'Oreal. I've been powered by them for many moons. They've taken very good care of me, and my contract was up for renewal in 2021? No, 2022. And they said, we love you, but we've been allowing you to stay home because of COVID and doing your deal on the internet and everything because, we've been shut down. But that's in the rearview mirror now. And a lot of why we pay you what we pay you is because you're willing to go out into the world. So how many days can you give us in 2022? And I said none. I'd like to figure out how we can, you can continue giving me money and letting me be, on the internet. And they said, Michael, that's not in the cards. So I was at the holy jumping off place, and I decided to jump off and thank them. It was a very gracious departing. And that, so that's a big commitment. And I am now, officially kind of retired from the company I co-founded, Summit, large in part because of if you want me to serve you, I will, but it's got to be on my terms, and I'm not going to. I want to do it on a laptop now or a mobile. I'll see you online, and it's interesting, Eric. There's just a lot of people that are just not. To them, it's we'll do a little bit, we'll do a mix, but we want you primarily in the world. And so, I'm just this side of 70. I've been, in the flow for many moons. And, I've managed my financial affairs well enough that I can live on my own resources and settle for whatever I got to settle to work as a coach online. So that's what's been up with me since I saw you last.
Well, I think most people call that success, to have the financial flexibility to do what you want, isn't it? Isn't that everyone's goal?
Oh, yeah, I'll tell you what. I can't remember a time where I feel a lack of, that angst that always comes with people giving us money. If you pay me money, I just feel obligated, and I'm always keeping an eye on that, and all of that went away. Now I have to pay attention because I'm on non-compete agreements. So who I dance with. I also have to pay attention that I'm not I'm being bought out by the company I co-founded. So I want to honor the non-compete. And as my wife reminds me every day, don't do anything to, jeopardize our relationship with these good people that are giving us an exit strategy. So I have to pay attention to how maverick-ish
Got it.
I get.
That's got to be difficult. Yeah, so I want to take a pause before you say anything else. For those listeners who don't know who you are, for 30 or 40 years, you've been in this industry. A stylist, a manager, an executive chain director of salons, multiple salon owner. You've been for about 25 years. You've been the founder and president of Salon Development Corporation, an international company. That's the one you're talking about now, specializing in salon business training. You're a world-renowned recipient of numerous awards for all of your contributions and achievements, and helping tens of thousands of salon professionals transform their businesses. Does that encapsulate it?
In a nutshell, some of it's a little bit embarrassing. I mean, I got my hairdresser's license, 75. I actually launched Salon Dev in the mid-'80s, and then stayed independent and kind of was enough of a blip on a radar screen that L'Oreal asked if I'd be interested in, partnering with them in 95-ish. And then a couple of us co-created Summit Salon Business Center, just this side of 9/11. So it's been a remarkable ride. And as you were kind of, reading that off, I had to close my eyes and be humbled and, thank the universe. It's been a very, very, very good ride, prosperous ride. And I'm like you, I'm a learner. So anytime I'm engaged in any kind of project, what's important to me is not only how you do, but how did I do, not as making the score, but what did I learn? And how is that going to help me to continue to get better at serving, the next wave? I've been, on a lot of waves. You can't help but be on a lot of waves when you've been hanging out for a few decades.
Mm-hmm. And so when I'm talking to somebody like you with so much experience, it reminds me how much I feel like our industry doesn't look at history a lot. It feels like we're always looking forward. We're always looking at what's happening now and what's happening tomorrow. And we so rarely think of what happened 20, 30, 40, 100 years ago. And it's fascinating to me, the whole history of our industry. And one of my favorite Instagram accounts, and I'm going to forget the name right now off the top of my head, but it focuses on the history of hair. It shows a lot of old pictures, and it talks about the way it used to be, right? And I think it was only, maybe less than 100 years ago that it became a regular thing that people got paid to do hair for other people. I think before that, people were doing their own hair, or, a family member was doing the hair. Is that right?
Oh yeah. As you were talking, I went, ooh, I've never looked at it that way before. But I would characterize myself more of a salon business historian. So, most people, when they think about the salon, they want, that the core is the service, the look, the art, and I certainly have profound regard for that. But, there's always and will always be the business side of the art. And I was on the art side for a while, but pretty much by the early to mid 80s, I thought I saw the opportunity that there's a business reality here, especially when I started working with chains and became a multiple franchisee myself. You cannot not, have an appreciation for the business side, even though most people that are in the game are really more, to your point, the hair side, the history of hair. And I'll stay in the conversation, but I can really geek when it comes to the business side. I was part of that 40, 50-year history, and part of the history, and at definable moments was part of the making of that history. And so I say this to people all the time that, go back a couple of decades or more, and they'll send me a picture of where we were somewhere. And I always say, I remember. And you've come far.
Yeah.
We've come far, keep on swimming.
I got into this industry because it was such a great combination of artistry and business necessity. I call it business necessity because it is a necessary component of the formula. My dad was a business person. He had warehouses, a small business person. At his peak, he had 5 warehouses. My mom is an artist. She painted and made a career of the painting. And even though she was primarily a creative, she also had to deal with the fundamental requirement that she couldn't just, spend all this money, every year in service of her art, because that's impossible unless she had a trust fund, which she didn't. And so I got into the industry because I had a nice combination of those two things. And then I found myself kind of, I guess, more on the business side, but as a component of building salons, I need to be a creative. I need to build a facility that is appealing to creative people. And I need to make sure it changes and evolves and gets better over time. And that's one of the things I love about the industry. But back to you, focusing on the business side, and you've become so good at it, and you've contributed so much to the community in all of your advice and inspiration and information. I want to focus on that in this conversation. And I want to know, why don't we just start off with, you have a lot of conversations with people in the industry. Is there anything that you seem to be dealing with now that is maybe a little bit unique from, let's say, 10 years ago that people are struggling with?
Yeah, and as you and I begin to geek out about it, somebody that will be listening to our conversation, if I'm, unless I'm hallucinating, they're going to go, "Oh my God, that's true." I was not aware of it, and I've never heard it put in that context, and no one's ever given me a language but it's true. And the answer to your question is, people say, "Why do you keep going?" And you're just this side of 70, because I've never ever been this fascinated, astounded by how much the business is changing and disrupting all of the ways, the modalities that the business has run on forever, and that is whatever we want to call this era that we're in, the social digital iGen, where there's another business model. And I'm still, studying it, watching it like a hawk. But yes, that would be, and it would be, somebody that's 19 years old that's currently in school, going to cosmetology school. And since I'm no longer with Summit or L'Oreal, and I really have to pay attention to non-compete agreements, I am a co-owner, a partner in a very, very small chain of schools. It's actually 3 cosmetology schools that just allow me to, because I'm partial owner in any creation and innovation that I'm part of, stays in that arena until. And so I get to watch. And I do watch, and I watch, there's always that 5-10% of the next class, they just got it. You can just, the look, the movements. And today, you can go to an Instagram page. We couldn't do that a little while ago, and you can go, whoa, here's somebody that's 19, and from interviewing hundreds of these 19-year-olds, they were on Instagram at 10,
Yep.
right? And they were creating content, and they were branding, and they were doing all sorts of things, and they wanted to go to hair school because it was in their soul. And a lot of them did. They went literally. If I couldn't get to cosmetology school during high school, as soon as I was done, I'd go. And then others felt the pressure of, whatever. I need to go to college. And some went for an hour and went, no, that's not going to work. Some went for a year. Some went for 4 years. And you go out for a couple of years and you go, I'm dying. My soul is, and they go to school, cosmetology school. And here we are. I get to live with them for, 1,500, 1,800 hours. And I see them and what they're doing. And if you didn't know that they were cosmetology students, you couldn't tell by looking on their pages from the quality of their work to the way they're creating the content to branding it. And you go, whoa. And then you start looking at metrics in school. And you go, this is somebody that's doing, I don't know, $1,500, a couple $1,000 a month as a student.
Yeah, with those cheap prices, those cheap beauty school prices.
Yes. I mean, I just interviewed somebody a couple of days ago that has her own website, a link on her Instagram page, and a book now button and she's created this all herself through, watching YouTube.
Sure.
And so I go, well, wait, whoa. So, and then these people DM me, and then they'll send me a piece of my content, and then they send me a selfie, and then they come in for whatever it is, some sort of transformational color, and then they book themselves on my booking app.
Right.
It's like,
not the schools, not the schools books.
Not the schools. And I go, no, okay, so how's that work with the school owner? Well, as soon as they come in, I put them on the school's deal, but I don't want to, I want to take care of that for them. And some of them said, because the school's booking app isn't seamless. I mean, they're really geeky.
Yeah, of course, it's native to them.
Oh, I mean, and then fast forward at 21, 22, they're trending a 6-figure, whether it's a W-2 over here, or this is what I'm kind of getting close to grossing after my expenses if I'm self-employed. And, when you've been in it as long as I've had, and you go, before this, like whether we were talking about millennials or Xers, Gen Xers, that ride, assuming you could get there, was a 7, 8, 10-year ride if you were a compulsive, obsessive achiever.
Wow.
And now they're going into salons. I've never seen hairdressers less dependent coming out of school on a salon. Now I'm generalizing, I'm talking about that 10 or 20%.
Sure.
You always I need to go to a salon for a while because, but now I'm seeing them go straight into, a lot of them, self-employed communities, and then those that aren't, they're vetting out where they're looking to go before they inquire about an opportunity. So to me, that's a new model. Mm-hmm. And I hear all the time from salon owners, I've never been so disempowered. I feel disempowered. And first of all, I love anybody in the business. And I say to them with empathy and compassion, my friend, I might suggest that you really haven't been empowered. Your power has been differenced. So there's been and so if you want to be and stay in the game and not only survive and thrive, you really are going to need to unlearn some of the things that worked for you forever and be open to learning what this new age era that we're in, if you want to do as well as you're doing. So it's a emotionally charged conversation.
That is so interesting. And as you're talking, and I'm absorbing everything you're saying, I'm thinking about the shift that we had at Salon Republic probably, I'm throwing out a number, maybe, 8 years ago or whatever. For the first 15 years, we had a policy that we don't take people out of school. Certainly when I started in 1999, 2000, it didn't make any sense how somebody could come out of school into their own salon and be successful. And so for 10 or 15 years, that seemed to remain the same, be consistent. And then there was a point at which I started talking, our manager started letting me know about somebody who came in right out of school. They have a great Instagram following. They have tons of business, all this confidence. And I was able to go on to their Instagram circa 2015 and see, wow, that looks like professional work. And so, okay, we'll give it a try. And then they were, and they continue to be some successful in an independent situation. So I've seen that, but not really at the root like you're talking about. I think it is important. You talk about the 20%, the top 20% who it's just native for them, and I see that as well. And it's not native for me, to go onto Instagram and to show things about myself. But I see that happening, and it is very interesting. And of course, that's the world in which I play. I want to make people like that. I want to empower them in whatever small way that I can, whether it's I figure out a way to do towels so they don't have to do towels, right? And I figure out a way to offer whatever support that I can without making them participate in that support. We offer educational classes, every Monday, but they don't have to go, right? They can go if they want. And I figure out a way to do it free. So it's all very interesting. So let's kind of delve into the digital element of this, because that is the underpinning of the change. And I've sensed that there has been a change on social media, from Instagram a little bit to TikTok, et cetera. And then people kind of getting disenfranchised, what is the word? Just kind of annoyed maybe at social media. But others hanging in there and finding success, continuing to find success. What have you noticed in terms of changes on social media within our community?
Great question. Any change, my newest sighting, if you will, is it's really, at least it was to me, invisible, like way invisible, and until I started poking around a little bit and now geeking out with, a hairdresser that's very, very digital and is, to your point, they're native to it. And it really is less to do with branding and more to do with once someone, if I'm a hairdresser and I have a more than adequate brand platform on Instagram, let's say, and I have an inquiry, some DM, and that could come into me because somebody happened to be heard about me and got to my page and kind of vetted me out on the page, or it could be, like to your point, your brand got somebody looking at your community, and I'm one of the people in the community, and there's something that they saw on your community page that's my content, and they come in. So how people come in and inquire, that first shot over the bow, some inquiry, what I see now more than ever is a protocol, a blueprint. It almost looks like a step-by-step. Now, a hairdresser, as you know, most hairdressers are very intuitive. So they wouldn't think in terms of intentionality or strategy or tactic, but I'm both. I'm very intuitive, but I leverage content, so I have to be a strategic thinker. But after that first inquiry, immediately, the hairdresser, as they reach out, or whether I'm reaching out during my reach out or whatever, immediately I vet out who is this person that's inquiring. I go to their page. I begin to follow them. I dedicate, not tons of time, but enough to go, okay, at least now I'm, I know who's who in the crew. Sometimes, depending on the salon, a hairdresser all of a sudden, I call it, finds a UFO on their appointment book. It's like, wow, I haven't served this person before, and I'm clueless as to how they even got on my book, except I got them, from the salon that I'm in or whatever. And so they immediately then would go follow and leave a comment on a piece of content, and as well as the DM to go, oh, I see you're on my book.
Yeah.
And I was on your page, and there's something that they engage in, and then they'll say, I don't want to wait. Let's get a head start before you come in. And it's almost like, okay.
Yeah, make a connection.
Yes, and there's that we'll just call that a virtual consult. It's organic. It's not face-to-face on Zoom or video chat or FaceTime. It's all DM. Sometimes it's text messaging, and they get a lot done over 3, 4, 5 exchanges. It doesn't happen inside of a 10, 15, 20-minute window. It might happen inside of 3 or 4 days. So, but the point is, each party in the dance is, I'm going to give you 30 seconds of my life. You're going to give me 30 seconds of yours. It might take me a half a day or so to get back to you, but we get it figured out. And when you finally do come in and we meet in real time, it's not the first visit experience. It's almost like, oh my God, we're seeing each other. It's almost like
you're already
BFFs.
friends.
And I've really fascinated. I've become almost like an anthropologist, psychologist. Like, what is going on in something that looks so, digital? And I'm now doing rants, gospels, Zoominars on the anatomy, the blueprint of virtual consults, why they matter, and the single most important, my first shot over the bow is both parties, the hairdresser and the prospective client, feel so safe It's so safe.
Yeah.
We're not on the phone. We're
Yeah.
doing this, and it's slow, and it's like, oh. And we can get, and now both parties are saying, I don't even want to see clients, or I don't want to come in until we get all of that figured out on the internet.
Yes.
So that I don't have the stress.
Right. Anxiety.
Inside of a 10-minute window, and it's almost I'm naked. There's clients now that will refuse to come in to get a traditional consultation because it's like, I'm done with that. I'm done. Every time I go in, there's me on both sides. I see and hear conversations behind me. I know they can see and hear mine, and frankly, there's part of that conversations. I'm vulnerable. I'm embarrassed. I'm talking about my preferences, my little idiosyncratic. I like this. I don't. And then when it comes to money, then and I got to do that inside of 10 minutes. Otherwise, I feel like I'm stealing time. The
hairstylist is stressed. The hairstylist is running late and then rushes through. And then and one of the things that you put on your Instagram, and this is something that you put on your Instagram recently, is the anxiety that a hairstylist can feel when before a new client comes in, and then having to rush through the get to know you with the, we call it the consultation, right? And which is not just a personal and emotional thing that can be wrapped in anxiety for both parties, but it's also a professional thing where you need to figure out, okay, what do I need to do to make my customer happy? And what you're talking about is breaking down those barriers in advance, which is just so fascinating. We've done 300 episodes, never missed a week in 6 years now. And so there's not a whole lot of things that we haven't broached, but I think this is one of those rare things that I don't think I've ever talked about on this podcast with a guest, is that kind of pre-appointment anxiety. And I love what you're saying so much. One additional comment I'm going to make, and then I'll throw it back to you, is something that I particularly like, and maybe this will be of some benefit to the listeners, maybe not. But one thing that I particularly like is engaging with somebody online and then meeting them in person. So you break down that barrier. There's a digital barrier where both parties are in control. You called it safe. And I think it feels safe because each party is in control of their communication to the other party. They do it when they want to, at night or in the morning or whenever is convenient for them. And it's very safe. And then you get comfortable. And then when you meet in person, it's like you know them already. And I think that makes the appointment so much better for both.
Oh, spot on. And to your point, that I was 300 interviews, haven't missed a week. We've broached a whole bunch of issues, but this is feeling like a new conversation. And I'm saying, wonderful, thank you, because you're affirming. Sometimes it gets lonely when you're so far ahead of the curve, and people, because we're in this very awkward state right now where there's as many or more, I'm going to call them traditional, analog, non-digital. A lot of them are salon owners, and they're not there yet. And then we have this conversation. But if you're a salon owner, to the degree that you are analog and traditional, non-digital, I'm going to suggest there's a dangerous lack of empathy. There's a dangerous lack of compassion for both the iGen hairdresser and the consumer today. I hear, I don't know, I'm sure you're hearing it, that iGens, 19, 20-year-olds have, and I hear this all the time, quote, anxiety issues. And so if they work in a salon and they see a UFO on their book, a new client, and I've not met, they get hyper And I'm saying, yep, we all got hyper, except they've got an alternative today that nobody else had called, there's another way. There's not only an alternative, frankly, it's much, much more viable. And the consumer today, more and more that are more digital, are going, I've had it. I don't want to come into your salon until we figure out exactly what I'm going to have, what my investment is, and how long I'm going to be in this person's life before I'm done. And if you're not willing to give me the answer before I come in, then you're not ready to have me as a consumer. I mean, am I a little bit ahead of my time in saying that? Sure. But I bet you, a grande latte, we're 36 months away, that if you are not in this conversation, you're losing potential clients to a marketplace that's becoming more and more, I'm going to call it digital culture, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I 100% agree, and I think I experience this in certain ways where I either hear about our hairdressers not willingly taking new clients unless they have had some experience with that human, and they think to themselves, I'm not going to commit 3 hours of my life to a total stranger. And I think that feels new because I didn't hear about that 23 years ago. And I experienced this in real time when I refer people to our own hairdressers. And our own hairdressers know me, of course. And even that is not enough. Like, they want to go and they want to know who, let's say my friend John needs a haircut, and I send my friend John to Jane, our hairstylist. Jane is not just going to immediately book John. Now, some of our hairstylists will, but not all of them. Many of them are like, who's John? Tell me, is John the kind of person that I want to spend an hour with giving a haircut to? And until they feel comfortable that the answer is yes, they're not going to book them. And so it's been difficult, in fact, for me to refer people who ask me for good hairdressers in our own salons.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I get. And when you really look at the world is changing. We've got more of everything on including on the negative as we do the creative. So. Yeah. We're all now, there's a little bit of, we're all a bit more vigilant when we go into the world and we need to serve people in the world. There's a risk in that I don't remember before. So I get it. But to the degree that we're in this conversation, we understand it, we accept it. And I'm the same way now. And I'm not as overt. When there's somebody that wants me to consult them, they reach out to me before I even return the DM, the email, the whatever. I vet them out, and you can now all the way. I can, and when I'm now consulting, gone are the, can I ask you a handful of questions?
Yeah,
it's like I have all the answers to all the questions that I had to ask you.
Yeah.
A few years ago, and I can make the decision to not take the ride. And I love that. That's freedom.
Yeah, it is. It's very interesting. So you like slogans. I like slogans. I'm more of a slogan consumer versus a slogan producer. I sense that, I don't have any of my own. Maybe I do, but, I don't have them on the top of my head when I always need them. But you seem to be a slogan producer. You like them and you have them. And so on Instagram, for example, there's a couple, and I'm going to read them, and you can explain your thoughts behind them. One that I like particularly, 95% of everything you worry about won't happen. And the other 5% will teach you the greatest lessons of your life.
Yeah, I'm laughing because I heard that, I learned that, I practiced that because I've been in rehab for 25 years. Or, I've been hanging out with a psychotherapist and, PTSD this and that. So, yeah, that worry for me, and I'm bringing my personal experience to the table and answering that, and I was using 95 and 5 as more of a metaphor. But I think the bigger point is I really am getting more awake about noting sooner rather than later that I'm, that habit that's been with me forever, it's rearing its ugly head. And worry to me is thinking about life in a certain way where I'm, going from past to future. Something happened to me in the past that wasn't well, and I want to make darn sure it doesn't happen to me tomorrow. So I'm in the name of control. And so I now, when I note that I'm doing that, I'm awake enough. I practice mindfulness. I practice meditation. So there's all things that I've learned over the years where I can almost let go or release my attachment to that narrative in my head and give my attention to something more interesting in the present moment on the faith that life is going to work it out, that one way or the other. And if it does come back to bite me, that teaches me great lessons. It's forgive the offender, forget the offense, remember the lesson. So there's all kinds of other, whether you want to call them slogans or principles, that I practice that allow me to navigate life a little bit better than 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah. The whole worrying for no reason, I like to say to my family, and I guess this is a slogan, I guess I'm not just a consumer of slogans. I tell my wife, who's a worrier, and my daughter, who's a worrier, and my son is probably also a worrier, although he's less verbal about it. I say, don't worry unless there's something to worry about. Because I find them worrying about, things that are, like you said, will never happen. And that just, I think it's such an expense on people, on their psyche and their energy and their ability to, be satisfied and happy and productive. But that is the way that some of our brains are wired. I understand that anxiety can be genetic.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's, the kids don't take after the neighbors, so some of it is in the family of origin, some of it is, it's in our genetic. Somebody asked me the other day, so what would be your take on what's the opposite of worry? And I said, well, I don't know that there's only one opposite, but for me, the whole principle of acceptance, which is not submission, but acceptance basically says, I'm aware of not only what's going on in this moment, but what this moment requires of me. And there's a willingness for me to engage with it or learn how to engage with it in a way that my life will be better for it.
Yes.
Instead of worrying about it, complaining about it, all that is just forms of resistance. What's that saying? What I resist persists, and what I accept can be changed.
Yeah. And that leads me to another one of your slogans, which is tough times don't define you, but how you respond to them certainly does. And that's kind of what you just said, which is don't get mired emotionally in the downdraft of worry or a tough time. Instead, I think of it as almost separating yourself emotionally from the event. Almost imagine like your friend, I keep coming up with a random name, John. So your friend John, he's in a tough time. What would your advice be to John? Because you could sit there over a beer and be like, oh yeah, John, she's cheating on you or whatever. You got to dump her. You can give advice that is a little bit more pragmatic and a little bit free from some of your fears, anxieties, and emotions. And very oftentimes that can be better advice. There's a phrase, I think it's called threshold of control, and it comes from one of my favorite books that I can't remember the name of right now. But this is a moment in somebody's life when they can choose two paths. One path, and this is a difficult moment in somebody's life, and they can choose to let it keep them down and stifle them and prevent them from doing productive things, or they can choose to look at it objectively and come up with a good solution. And the people who succeed over and over and over in their lives are those who do the latter, not the former.
Yeah, I love that. That's get goosebumps when we're in these conversations. Yeah, one of my terms for this conversation is, I call it living in the pause, and that kind of came from the work of I think it was Viktor Frankl forever ago. He's kind of survived World War II and all the stuff that came with it, and the essence of his quote, and I it's not verbatim, but it's to the effect of, in between what happens to us, the stimulus, and our response, our reaction, in between those two, there is a space. And in that space, therein lies not just our freedom, but our growth, and before I began waking up, or whatever you want to call that, growing up, cleaning up, showing up, there was no space.
Right.
I was like,
immediate
this
reaction.
happening, bang.
Yeah.
And now, when I say there was no space, there was, I just didn't see it. I would go through that space like a red light unseen. But the idea that, no, it's there. I'm just not see it. And if I can't see it, in essence, I can't be it or take advantage of some of the opportunities that come with seeing and being that. And so I've now called that the pause. To, when I get up in the morning, take a few minutes and just pause. And there's an important decision that needs to get made or handled in the next hour, day, or whatever. Do I have time for a pause? Always, 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 always. And that pause can be from a minute to, I'm going to take the day, not to think about it, but maybe reflect, ponder it. And so now I've been a practitioner of that long enough, and I've seen the difference that it's making, not only in my own mental, emotional well-being, but the quality of my decision making and action taking. I would say I'm probably more responsive now and less reactive than I've ever been in my life. And, it's taken me many, many moons, I should say. It's taken life many, many moons to get me to that place. But pause now has become an acronym for me, PAUSE, practicing awareness until sensibility emerges.
Wow.
Practicing awareness until stability. There's enough S words that I can drop in, and if and that basically the awareness that I'm practicing is the awareness of the present moment. That inside of the present moment, there's enough wisdom there that if I just give myself a chance to be there, there's going to be an answer, an idea that's going to emerge that's so much better than if I'm, wound up tight and boom, 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 boom. So that's my...
It reminds me growing up and seeing my dad, who had this small business. He never had any employees, my dad. He didn't have the temperament for employees. And I think his self-awareness was pretty inspiring, actually, that he didn't kind of push himself to have employees, because he probably wouldn't have been a good boss, a good manager of a group, of a team of people. But he, nonetheless, he ran his small business successfully for all those years. When he found himself in a moment like this, where there was a legal issue or something went horribly wrong, and somebody was doing something really bad, and some other thing that was piquing his emotions and anger, etc., he would write a letter. Because this was before computers. He would write a letter, and then he would put it in his desk drawer, and he would close the drawer, and then he would go to sleep. He would let the day pass, and the following day he would sit at his desk. He would open the drawer and read the letter, and then make the decision. And so often, he said, he was so happy that he didn't send the letter or take the action that was described in the letter, because the frame of mind in which he was on the following day was such a better path. And I think I can only describe that as, you have these amplified emotions, when all this stuff is going down, and then this threshold of control moment, or this pause, as you call it metaphorically, allows you to either take control of the situation or let the situation take control of you. And if you let the situation take control of you, your response is very often not optimal.
Anytime I'm allowing my emotions to make the decisions, I get on the other side of it and went, God, I wish I had that to do over again. Yeah. And in retrospect, that the person that triggered the emotion owns me. I'm enslaved to them.
Yep.
But until that process gets reversed, to me, that's ultimate freedom, and that's priceless.
It is. Let's talk about something that's super important these days from a tactical standpoint. We are in an inflationary environment in our economy. Fortunately, a lot of the kind of peak inflation has subsided, but we still have a lot of inflation in a lot of the things that we buy, food prices and energy prices and all those things. And it is chipping into people's pocketbooks. There's no doubt about it. We in the beauty industry need to keep an eye on not just our expenses. We know our expenses are going up. There's not a whole lot we can do about a lot of them. If you like to buy bread, it's going to cost you more, period. But the things that we do have control over are our revenue. How much money we're getting from our business activities behind the chair. And that means price increases. And I know how many people despise the entire process of raising their prices. So I want to ask you, as somebody who's been in the industry for so long, you've probably answered this question 1,000 times. I don't know if the answer has changed nowadays. Maybe there's more tools digitally, etc. But let's start with, how does a hairdresser know if they can raise their prices?
If we're just looking for a metric where there's a number that tells me I have the readiness to raise my price. I may not have the willingness for whatever reasons. I'm afraid or whatever, but the data tells me that there's more than enough readiness. I look at now it's really about dollar per, whether you want to go dollar, it's even more now dollar per hour, because there's a math formula that helps us with that. Some people use dollar per client, and I go, okay, close enough. But forever ago we were looking at, okay, what's your average week, what's your average month, what's your average, and now we're closer to real time, and there are thresholds of where that number is, depending on your prices and stuff. And I used to say, what's your request? What percentage of the clients request you? And I don't want to say that I've thrown that away, because I haven't, but I've tabled it. It's there if I need it, but I now know when your productivity per hour is at a threshold, the data suggests that you're busy enough to raise price. And before I'll tell you to do that, I'll always look at where you're at, your social media space. I want to see your Instagram to see how close to being. Are you as much of a social digital Jedi as you are a hairdresser and building clientele? Because if you are, that now really is a way of hedging the bet. That any loss you're going to experience, you're going to get that back and then some by pushing a button here or there.
New clients. So by getting new clients.
Yes, I call them lifelong clients that you haven't met yet. That are used to paying prices that you're not charging yet.
And who are looking for you, but they haven't found you yet.
Bingo. But there's a more fundamental problem that we have to go way back, in that, if you've been a hairdresser even if you're halfway through your first decade, which is 5 years in, and you began building, and your rules for rapport building are like the traditional. We haven't discerned yet that there's a profound difference between being client friendly and befriending clients. That's a slogan, but it's a very profoundly important slogan that you need an 11th commandment, and that is thou shalt be friendly without befriending.
Okay, so explain that difference.
And it really is, it's a discernment. I never, ever want to forget that my friendship with you is unlike, if you're my client, unlike all the other friendships that I have, in so much that this friendship is monetized. There's an exchange of money every time we meet. And because of that, our friendship is, I never want to forget that distinction, because if I do, there's going to come a time that I deserve to raise my price because my value has went up, and my relationship with you is going to get in the way. And frankly, my friendship with you starts and ends pretty much with you being my client. Right. There's a lot of friends in my life that are going to be my friends. They were my friends long before, and then, or my family. I could even compare that relationship to the relationship I have with my spouse, my children. So that takes enormous intentionality and consciousness. But I tell you, iGens that are coming in now, and because we know that, and there's a consciousness and a language to support it, at least the schools that I'm involved in, that's a very, very, very important primary conversation, and we're raising that awareness. And this is why iGens are, I've heard it say, they're fearless when it comes to prices that they charge.
Oh, that's great. I mean, that's a good thing. In terms of the friend issue, I like to call it be friendly, but not friends. There is a boundary there. There's a professional boundary, and believe me, I totally get it. I remember many eons ago, I hired a salon manager, and I kind of started, I wanted to date her and vice versa. And we decided that she shouldn't work for me before we started dating, because of course that would be a major boundary issue, to say nothing of like the legal and everything. This is like in the early 2000s. And so she willingly quit or resigned, and then we started dating. And of course, that was just a better situation. It was annoying because I had to go find another salon manager, but I didn't want to cross that line. And hairstylists, of course, notorious for crossing that friendship boundary, which makes it difficult to raise prices. It makes it difficult to be good at managing their business. And so that's why you brought it up. Okay, so let's say that somebody's got their arms around that situation. How does somebody know how to raise or how much to raise prices?
Yeah, well, there's different scales out. Summit, by the way, has an extraordinary, I don't know,
Formula,
ruler, if you will, or yard. But there's quite a few metrics on it. So you've got rebook rates and repeat rates and service dollars, retail dollars, etc. When I'm working with people in the communities that I'm working with, the essence of an ingenious model is in its simplicity. So, and I'm going to see while I'm chatting with you if I can actually find, because I just help somebody put one together. Here it is. Yeah. So as an arbitrary example, when we begin building, sooner or later we're going to get a metric on our average day. Is it $200? Is it $300? Is it $400? And let's just make that, this is our base. And whatever I'm charging now, this is my base. But every time my average day goes up $100, so if I go from 5 to 6 or 6 to 7, that would be not but a metric that would suggest you have the readiness to raise. Well, but what if I lose clients? Well, for every, what is it? There's a rule of thumb out there somewhere that for every % that you raise your price, if you expect to lose a corresponding % in headcount, you can get a headcount and go, gee, if I'm going to pull this off, I want to make sure that I've got some initiative, that I've got some influx of new to offset the 10% that I've anticipated. If I go up 10 points, I mean, there's always a math formula to quantify this.
Right.
And that, do you have a strategy where you've got enough coming in to make up for that? And more times than not, you whatever you expect you're going to lose, you're losing less. And so at least that's been my experience, the hundreds of times I've helped somebody to get clear about that. And, as we kind of debrief, because sooner or later, a price hike is in the rearview mirror. Mm-hmm. And I say to somebody that now they're on the back end of it, what do you know now that you didn't know before that might help you the next time you need to navigate this? And it's always the same. It wasn't as scary as I thought. It didn't get as messy as I thought. Great. So
my clients didn't yell at me.
Yeah, you might have, a situation, you navigate it, and again, back to the worry stuff. You just, get on with your life.
Yeah, exactly. I've heard the same thing. So often, the extra money that you're making from the 90% of the clients who stayed makes up for, if not more, the 10% who left. And I'm making up those numbers. And of course, it's going to vary on everyone's situation. But yeah, I all wise words there. If you could change anything about the industry at all right now, what would it be? My aspiration is that we could have conversations that didn't make it either or. There's a lot of either or, and those conversations are emotionally charged. I need to remind people that I serve on a regular basis because
my business slogan since 1980 something has been, I'm in the business of helping people behind the chair to build their business. That's it. I mean, that's been, and it's worked for me, and I don't have any intention in changing that anytime soon. What business modality they're on is of no consequence to me. I'm going to love you because I have compassion on anybody that's building their business and spending their life behind the chair. It's not a ride for the faint of heart. It can beat up our mind and body. So it makes no difference, absolutely no difference to me how somebody is paid, if they're employed, self-employed, commissioned, salaried, however, I don't, and I have colleagues. I've lost clients because I haven't taken a position on that, and I just decided I'll live with the loss. But so I wish that wasn't as much of an issue as it continues to be. I thought it would have been kind of dissolved by now, and it's not. It's still alive and well.
Totally agree. Any last words for the community?
Just one last thing, and that is anyone that's coming in now, see yourself as, if you're in the conversation that you and I have been having, Eric, you see yourself as a world-class professional athlete with, a 20-year shelf life. And your body is going to be performing at a very high rate, and you're going to enjoy a lot of money. Manage that money well. So when you're on the back end or halfway through your second decade, as the footprints of being behind the chair begin to show up with issues with shoulders, hands, legs, whatever, that you have options that you wouldn't have if you weren't mindful of what we're talking about right now.
Right.
Manage your money well. Be as much of a Jedi at building whatever you want to call it, security and wealth, as you are at growing your income, and you'll be fine.
So wise. So where do you want people to look for you on online? What's your Instagram?
Instagram right now, where most people come and hang out with me, is Michael Cole Summit, and that will stay that way until. I have another page on Instagram called Michael Cole Mindfulness, because mindfulness training is becoming so much a part of my salon coaching, especially the life coaching part of the business coaching modality. So if you're intrigued about that, hang out with me there. And then I have communities on Facebook that correspond with the same handles. It's just I just find myself more and more in the Instagram space, and I'm enough in the TikTok space to say that I'm in it. Actually, my community is growing faster on TikTok than it is on Instagram, and I want to be careful how I say this, but I love geeking out on Instagram.
Yeah. Well, no, you've got a great page. I didn't know about the mindfulness page. I'm definitely going to check it out because I'm a fan of that. Although I don't do it enough.
As a side note, I had an Instagram page with just a side of 50,000 followers. And it got hacked a year and a half ago, and I have not been able to compel Instagram to get it back for me.
Oh my God!
I've just pretty much let go and let God,
Well, I've heard that story. I think we've all heard that story. Now there's the verification. I think you pay whatever, $10, $15 a month, and supposedly it can help you get your account back if that happens. So that's an option that wasn't available. What'd you say, 18 months ago? But sorry to hear that. That's horrible.
Thank you for engaging me in the conversation. I love geeking out with people like you. You're ahead of the curve and very visionary, and sounds like you're just you've come far, my friend, and you're on a roll. So Godspeed.
Thank you, Michael. We're so lucky to have you as part of this community, and thank you for spending the hour with us. And I look forward to seeing you, even though you might not be on the road. Maybe next time I'm in Minneapolis.
Yeah, we'll break bread. And, I never say never. So will I be on another airplane someday? I don't know. Stay tuned. More will be revealed.
Awesome. See you, Mike.